The tragic collapse of a nation. Zimbabwe's 37-year downward spiral. Imagine holding a banknote in your hand worth $100 trillion. In most parts of the world, you'd be the richest person on earth. But in Zimbabwe in 2008, that bill wouldn't even buy you a bus fare. How does the former breadbasket of Africa, a nation born from the promise of independence in 1980, descend into a state where inflation hits 89.7 sextillion %? Today, we're counting down the 10 most devastating chapters of Robert Mugabe's 37-year rule, from the violent seizures of land to the mass emigration that emptied a nation. Stick around, because number 1 reveals how the man who was once a liberation hero finally met his end. Don't forget to hit subscribe for more deep dives into history's most complex regimes.
Even as the economy crumbled, Zimbabwe maintained one of the highest literacy rates in Africa, consistently over 90%. Mugabe, a former teacher, prioritized education early on. However, this created a tragic surplus, a highly educated workforce with absolutely no jobs. By the mid-2000s, unemployment hit a staggering 94%. Was an educated populace Mugabe's greatest achievement or his biggest threat? A 90% literacy rate is comparable to that of the United Kingdom, yet the economy was shrinking faster than any nation not at war.
The Great Brain Drain. Economic despair forced a mass exodus. Between 2000 and 2017, an estimated 3 to 4 million Zimbabweans fled the country. Most ended up in South Africa or the UK. This represents nearly 1/4 of the entire population leaving their homes just to survive. For example, 3 million to 4 million emigrants, meaning that 1 in 4 Zimbabweans live abroad. The government dismissed the diaspora as traitors, while the UN labeled it a humanitarian crisis caused by state mismanagement. Gukurahundi, the early terror. Long before the economic collapse, there was the Gukurahundi. In the early 1980s, Mugabe deployed the North Korean-trained 5th Brigade to Matabeleland to crush political rivals. The result was a series of massacres that left an estimated 20,000 Ndebele civilians dead. In general, there were 20,000 estimated deaths within 1983 to 1987 duration of campaign.
Operation Murambatsvina. In 2005, the government launched Operation Restore Order, or Murambatsvina, which literally means drive out the filth. They demolished informal markets and slums across the country, leaving 700,000 people homeless in the middle of winter. Imagine 700,000 people displaced during the cold of winter, and a total of 2.4 million people indirectly affected.
The health system collapse. By 2008, Zimbabwe's once admired health system was in ruins. A massive cholera outbreak infected nearly 100,000 people, killing over 4,000. Public hospitals ran out of basic medicine, and life expectancy for women plummeted to just 34 years. Afterwards, there was 4,288 cholera deaths in 2008, and predictably, the national life expectancy dropped from 61 to 34 years. As usual, the government blamed international sanctions for the lack of medicine, whereas doctors blamed state neglect. The 2008 election violence. When opposition leader Morgan Tsvangirai won the first round of the 2008 election, a campaign of state-sponsored terror began. Over 200 opposition supporters were killed and thousands were tortured, forcing Tsvangirai to withdraw from the runoff for the safety of his voters. It was independently recorded that there was 200-plus politically motivated murders and a rough estimate of 5,000 victims of organized violence. The number of displaced persons during this election was enough to fill a major NFL stadium to capacity. In fact, poll data showed Tsvangirai with a clear lead, yet the official tally was delayed for 5 weeks to facilitate the adjustment of results in favor of the ruling party.
Fast-track land reform. In 2000, Mugabe began the fast-track land reform program, violently seizing 4,500 white-owned commercial farms. While intended to address colonial-era imbalances, the land often went to ZANU-PF elites rather than landless peasants, causing agricultural production to fall by 50%. A total of 4,500 farms seized, resulting to a 79% drop in tobacco exports, 2000 to 2008, and other agricultural products. This collapse turned Zimbabwe from a regional exporter into a nation where 5 million people required food aid. At the end, whereas supporters saw it as restorative justice, critics saw it as the single move that destroyed the national economy.
The Great Economic Contraction. Between 1998 and 2008, Zimbabwe's GDP shrank by an incredible 45%. It was the most severe economic downturn for a country not at war in modern history. The budget deficit exploded to 24% of GDP as the government printed money to pay for wars and patronage. The country tragically experienced a massive 45% GDP contraction and 24.1% budget deficit in 2000. A 45% drop in GDP is roughly 4 times more severe than the U.S. Great Recession of 2008. Economists point to the printing press. Mugabe's cabinet pointed to a Western conspiracy of sanctions.
Hyperinflation, 89.7 sextillion %. By November 2008, inflation reached a level so high it's hard to fathom. 89,700,000 trillion %. Prices doubled every 24.7 hours. A loaf of bread that cost $2 in the morning could cost $4 by dinner time. People carried bags of cash just to buy a single egg. Overall, there was 89.7 sextillion % peak inflation. It was too bad that a $100 trillion note, the largest banknote printed. Literally speaking, to count to a sextillion, one number per second, would take 31.7 trillion years, over 2,000 times the age of the universe. That was how bad things were. At the end, the Reserve Bank Governor Gideon Gono famously defended the printing, saying he was protecting the state from collapse.
The 2017 military coup. The end of the Mugabe era didn't come from a vote, but from his own inner circle. In November 2017, the military took control after Mugabe fired his vice president, Emerson Mnangagwa. Under house arrest and facing impeachment, the 93-year-old leader finally resigned, ending 37 years of rule. A whole 37 years in power, leading the country from victory to ruin. Mugabe's rule lasted longer than the combined presidencies of Reagan, Bush Sr., Clinton, and Bush Jr., with ruins left as his legacy. Zimbabwe's story is one of immense potential squandered by the pursuit of absolute power. From a liberation hero who expanded schools to an authoritarian who presided over one of the world's worst economic collapses, Robert Mugabe's legacy remains a Rorschach test for Africa's history. Today, the nation still struggles with high inflation and political tension, proving that the shadows of a 37-year rule do not vanish overnight. Can a nation ever truly recover from an 89 sextillion % economic collapse? Or is Zimbabwe's current struggle simply the inevitable continuation of its past? Please like, comment, share, and subscribe for more insight into the African predicament.